Happy Saturday, everybody. It is Lorinda. Welcome to week 20 of Bible Day Live. So, Bible Day Live is a sharing event where I just take the things that I have learned and got inspired throughout the week and just share them here with you. So I am super excited to be here. It is week 20. We've done this 20 weekends in a row, and we're almost counting down to that halfway mark. If you want to follow along, you can download the schedule at BibleRoom.org. It is a chronological Bible schedule, like reading through the Bible in a year. And it is in the King James Version, and it has along with it the audio that goes with each of those weeks. I call them soundtracks, but you can use your own Bible, your own schedule. This event is just meant for sharing. And so I've got some exciting things to share today with you all. So, the thing I want to do first is make sure that audio is working, and it looks like it might be. Yeah. Okay. So, we're going to go right into this week's theme. This week's theme is First Things First. And that is taken from 2 Samuel 21 and 1. And the other thing I need to do here is make sure that I can control my flip of the screens with my phone. So, okay, we've got that going. And so 2 Samuel 21:1, week 20. First things first. This came to mind because of this verse. There was a famine during David's reign that lasted for 3 years. So David asked the Lord about it. And the Lord said, the famine has come because Saul and his family are guilty of murdering the Gibeonites. Now, you remember who the Gibeonites were. The Gibeonites were the group of, was a tribe that Israel made an oath with, that when they came and conquered the land of Canaan, that they would not harm them. And so in Saul's zeal, or the way Saul was, he completely disregarded that oath. So that was not a good thing. And that is what this verse is speaking to. In the land of Israel, famine was a known occurrence. It was Abraham and Isaac who migrated to escape the famine in Genesis 12:2 and 26:1. It was the a more extensive famine that happened when Jacob took his whole family. The children of Israel took his whole family. Jacob, that was renamed Egypt, to that was renamed Israel, took them all to Egypt, right, under his son Joseph, when Joseph was like the number two man in Egypt. So there are all kinds of ways that the people just naturally prepare for these famines that are known, right? So they had storehouse preparation. There was storehouses at the temple, and kings had storehouses. But sometimes the storehouse would run out. So this is 2 Samuel 21 and 1. This is our theme verse. And David might have got a clue that this famine was unusual, that it had some kind of spiritual components, because after the way it reads, it's like after 3 years, David decided, okay, I want to ask the Lord about this. Like, why is this famine coming upon us? And so the NLT version of the scripture reads, there was a famine during David's reign that lasted for 3 years. So David asked the Lord about it. And the Lord said, the famine has come because Saul and his family are guilty of murdering the Gibeonites. The King James version of that verse reads, then there was a famine in the days of David 3 years, year after year. And David inquired of the Lord, and the Lord answered, it is for Saul and for his bloody house, because he slew the Gibeonites. So this clue right here, year over year, seems very redundant because it already said 3 years. And so 3 years kind of says, okay, 1, 2, 3 years right behind each other, but then it repeats year after year. So there's a clue there that there's something going on there besides just 3 years. There's a spiritual component to it. That may have been a clue to us. We don't know what David's clue may have been to finally go, okay, I need to ask the Lord about this. In other words, it was finally figured out that this was not an ordinary famine. Okay. So this word here, the Hebrew word is bakash. Bakash. This is the transliterated spelling, and this is the spelling in Hebrew. Okay, seeing that a little bigger, it has the letters bait, Kaf, and Shin. Of course, we remember that Hebrew is read from right to left, so it reads this way: bait, Kaf, and Shin. Bakash. Okay, this was a little snippet of a Hebrew alphabet cheat sheet to help us learn the letters and be able to follow along when we saw an interlinear Bible like this one, that we could take the letters like these right here and be able to follow along and know what the names were. So this is the alphabet cheat sheet. Now, I don't know why my images aren't coming across. So let me see if I can fix that. Well, in Judges 6 and 9, I don't know how I'm going to fix that. Maybe if we stop sharing and put me back on the screen for a second and come out of the presentation and reload it. Let's see if that does the trick. And then we're going to do present and present again, audience window, and presentation window. Okay, then we have to share again, share, and share. Okay, and then we go back. There's the images. That image is a person in a famine. Okay, that's what that is. All right, so we already did this slide, so we'll go on to this one. We were here, and the next one is this one with Gideon. Now, That same word, bakash, is also translated inquired in Judges 6:29 that says, "And they said one to another, Who hath done this thing? And when they inquired and asked, they said, Gideon, the son of Joash, has done this thing." Judges 6:25 to 25 and 26 paraphrase is, "This was the test that God gave Gideon, the first test he gave him when he called him." So if you remember the story, Israel was in idolatry at the time, and Israel was under the oppression of the Midianites because the people had turned away from God and were worshiping false gods, including Baal and Asherah, which was presented by wooden poles or sacred trees known as Asherah poles. Gideon's call was was given to him as a young man from the tribe of Manasseh, which was the smallest tribe. And Gideon was threshing wheat in secret because he didn't want the Midianites to know that he was threshing wheat, because they would just come along and steal it. So they were really oppressing them. And the angel of the Lord appeared and called Gideon to deliver Israel. And Gideon felt weak and insignificant, and God reassured him by saying, "Go in the strength you have. I am sending you." And then after calling Gideon, this was his first assignment before he went to battle. God told Gideon to take his father's bull and tear down his father's altar to Baal and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Then build a proper altar to the Lord your God. And Gideon obeyed, but he feared what the townspeople were going to say. So he did it at night with his servants. And he tore down the altar of Baal, and he cut down the Asherah pole, and he offered a bull as a burnt offering on a new altar built to the Lord. So this verse here, 6:29, was the next morning when the townspeople were furious and asking who did this, because they saw that their idols were destroyed. But that same word was used there that meant inquired. And so in our theme verse this week, it is the same thing. You remember our theme verse is this one, and this is the word there used, inquired, and that's the Hebrew word there. And we said that was bet, kaf, shin, the letters that spell Bakash. And this is Gideon in Judges 6:29 using that same word. And this is another sense of that word that is in 1 Samuel 22 and 23, and that is here. And this time it's translated as seeketh. So in living the New Living Translation, it says, "Stay here with me and don't be afraid. I will protect you with my own life for the person who wants for the same person wants to kill us both." This was the story of David talking to the priest after Saul had killed all of the priests, because the Edomite told him where he was, and so he killed all of the priests because Saul was in his rage chasing after David. So this is how it reads in the King James Version. Abide thou with me. Fear not, for he that seeketh my life seeketh thy life. But with me thou shalt be in safeguard. So that same word, bakesh, here is translated seeketh. The sense of the word that relates to first things first, our thing for this week, is to seek, meaning to seek and experience. Let's see, will this actually, I don't think this works on here. Yeah, I don't think it works. Okay. To seek experience. To seek experience is this part of the word ring. This comes from Logos, which is one of the Bible study software that I really love to use. And in First Samuel, in our theme verse, this is the way it's used, to seek this way. But there is another sense of the word that relates to our theme of first things first, which is to seek experience, to seek an experience. That verb is to earnestly try to encounter the presence of a deity, often involving requests or petitions to the deity. It is with this word that we engage with scripture on a daily basis. We are seeking conversation and fellowship and guidance so that the communications are fluid and constant. And so the Lord's guidance in our lives becomes fluid and constant. This sense of the verb is also used in Exodus 33:7, which reads, "And Moses took the tabernacle and pitched it without the camp," meaning outside the camp, afar off from the camp, and called it the tabernacle of the congregation. And it came to pass that everyone that sought the Lord went out unto the tabernacle of the congregation, which was without the camp, which was outside the camp. So everyone that sought to have an experience with the Lord went out to this tent that was pitched outside the camp. They were seeking an experience. Isn't that what we're doing? Seeking an experience. Okay. Another sense of that word is in Jeremiah 29:13. And ye shall seek me and find me when ye shall search for me with all your heart. Oh, that's lovely. That is lovely, lovely. And that is our intention. Our intention is to seek him with all our heart, with everything that we know how to do as just humans desiring to have an experience with the Almighty. I love that. So that means that in everything that we do. So maybe it took David a little while to kind of get the idea to say, hey, there may be something different going on with this famine. Maybe we need to inquire of the Lord about it. And of course, when he inquired, he got the answer. God told him what was going on, that, hey, this famine is because Saul disregarded the oath that was made to the Gibeonites. So you need to make restitution for that. And of course, David did that. He went to the few Gibeonites that were left and said, like, hey, what can we do to resolve this thing for you? And I thought it was interesting in the verse, in the response of them, they said something like, well, silver or gold is not really going to do it. And I immediately thought about us being in such a litigious society right now. In our day, probably would have been like, just show me the money. Like, you don't have to kill anybody, just give me the money. So that's how we resolve stuff, with the money. But the Gibeonites family members, they actually wanted Saul's sons dead. So David made that happen. And then at the end of that chapter, we run into this very brave woman, mother of two of the sons of Saul. Her name was Rizpah. And she actually stayed out there with those dead bodies for months, protecting them from the animals and the birds and probably anything else. In her grief, in her loyalty, I just can't imagine staving off wild animals all through the night and day. What did she eat? Somebody had to know that she was out there, and I guess they brought her food, or just couldn't talk her out of leaving. But after a while, David got wind of what she was doing, and how she had been so brave and courageous and loyal, that he sent for those bodies and had them buried properly. Because in Israel, burial is a big deal. It is a point of honor. And that was probably what Rizpah was doing, was just honoring her children. But from David's end, we get the message that an oath made before the Lord is a serious thing. And when Saul disregarded that, then that had to be paid for. And that just happened to be this poor woman's children that paid for the sins of their father. So that leads us to remember this verse in Proverbs 3 and 6 that says, in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct their paths. And in the New Living Translation, it reads, seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. Oh, isn't that comforting? That is just comforting to know. He will show you which path to take. And so that is the message that I got from this, our theme verse for this week, because God does not change. His word is everlasting. His power is all powerful. And that is a comfort. That is an absolute comfort. So this is the topics that we had this week. And the one we're talking about here is in 2 Samuel 21, famine and Philistine battles, the Gibeonite revenge, and the hanging of Saul's descendants. And this here is a prayer, one of the prayers of the psalm, a morning prayer of guidance, seeking God's help in the face of evil. We're going to go over that psalm. And these are other beautiful psalms that were included in this week's soundtrack. So let's go through this Psalm 5 in the King James Version. Now, this psalm is written by David, and it was to the chief musician, 𝑁'𝑰𝑩𝑳𝑬. Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my meditation. Hearken unto the voice of my cry, my King and my God. For unto thee I pray. My voice shalt thou hear in the morning, O Lord. In the morning will I direct my prayer unto thee, and will look up. For thou art not a God that hath pleasure in wickedness, neither shall evil dwell with thee. The foolish shall not stand in thy sight. Thou hatest all workers of iniquity. Thou shalt destroy them that speak leasing. The Lord will abhor the bloody and deceitful man. But as for me, I will come into thy house in the multitude of thy mercy, and in thy fear will I worship toward thy holy temple. Lead me, O Lord, in the righteousness because of mine enemies. Lead me, O Lord, in thy righteousness because of mine enemies. Make thy way straight before my face. For there is no faithfulness in their mouth. Their inward part is very wickedness. Their throat is an open sepulchre. They flatter with their tongue. Destroy thou them, O God. Let them fall by their own counsels. Cast them out in the multitude of their transgressions, for they have rebelled against thee. But let all those that put their trust in thee rejoice. Let them ever shout for joy, because thou defendest them. Let them also that love thy name be joyful in thee. For thou, Lord, wilt bless the righteous. With favor wilt thou compass him as with a shield. Okay, that's the beautiful King James Version. Now, this is how the New Living Translation translates that verse, this psalm. O Lord, hear me as I pray. Pay attention to my groaning. Listen to my cry for help, my King and my God. For I pray that no one listen to my cry for help, my King and my God. For I pray to no one but you. Listen to my voice in the morning, Lord. Each morning I bring my request to you and wait expectantly. O God, you take no pleasure in wickedness. You cannot tolerate the sins of the wicked. Therefore, the proud may not stand in your presence, for you hate all who do evil. You will destroy those who tell lies. The Lord detests murderers and deceivers. Because of your unfailing love, I can enter your house. I will worship at your temple with deepest awe. Lead me in the right path, O Lord, or my enemies will conquer me. Make your way plain for me to follow. My enemies cannot speak a truthful word. Their deepest desire is to destroy others. Their talk is foul, like the stench from an open grave. Their tongues are filled with flattery. O God, declare them guilty. Let them be caught in their own traps. Drive them away because of their many sins, for they have rebelled against you. But let all who take refuge in you rejoice. Let them sing joyful praises forever. Spread your protection over them, that all who love your name may be filled with joy. For you bless the godly, O Lord. You surround them with your shield of love. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, so that's what I wanted to share. So now we're just showing our big picture timeline because we are going through these verses chronologically, which means in the order that they were in the Bible, that they actually happened in history, not the order that they're laid out in our Bibles, but we're going through in the order that things actually happen like on a timeline. And that just helps us put the story together. Okay. So that's what I wanted to share this week. That is the things that I wanted to share. So now, as we wrap up here, I want to remind us and remind me, because that's the point. One of the points of doing this sharing is to make sure that the things that are true, that the things we believe, that they stay in the forefront of our minds. And one of those things is what we think is the only thing we truly own, because it dictates what we believe, what we do, and what we say. And this life project, God gave us sovereignty over our own lives. Like, we can make choices. And I say that the best thing to do is to give that life right back. And our consistent engagement with the word helps us keep our mind and heart and desires focused, so we don't stray too far from the will of God before we snap back into our right minds. And one of the aims of my life is to integrate technology that is always changing with the word that never changes. So, in summary, our thing for this week is first things first. And He is our God if we are His people. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to next week, God willing, and I look forward to any comments that you may have. And I hope this was a blessing to one and all. Blessings.